Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to chat with you guys about two different ideologies regarding school routine. So what do I mean by school routine? I'm talking about whether or not you follow a more traditional school approach where you kind of school from August, September to May, and you kind of take a summer break, or if you use more of a year-round school approach where you're pretty much doing school year round, but you're taking more frequent breaks throughout the year. Instead of taking one long summer break, you might do school anywhere from 6 to 9 weeks and then take anywhere from 1 to 3 week break after each of those little quarters or semester kind of periods. So for the entirety of our homeschool experience, which was the past 7 years, we have always followed a more traditional school routine where we have always kind of started school somewhere in August or September and usually finish in May and sometimes early June. And that obviously allowed us to have a nice long summer break where we were traveling or at the pool or playing with our friends. And honestly, we've never really been doing a lot of even bridge activities during the summer. I didn't get the workbooks and we weren't doing random worksheets throughout the summer. Okay, I will say I always had really good intentions and I thought that maybe that I would, but we never really did. That isn't to say though that we didn't do anything. We were always reading aloud. They would have quiet reading time that they would need to do themselves. And, you know, we would draw and we would watch, you know, some YouTube videos or just do random things, but there was never anything formal or no workbooks or bridge activities. Now, this year, with everything going on in our lives, we actually haven't done school since April. So, you know, we obviously had to prep our house for sale and we had to sell our house, which required it being constantly ready for showings and being ready at a moment's notice to get 4 kids out the door. We had to move and we bought a camper and we have just been doing things with the camper to get it ready for this life transition. So if I'm honest, we haven't done any formal school since April. So obviously we pushed pause a little early in order to do all the things. I just did not have the bandwidth to handle schooling 4 kids while also prepping to move and purging all of our stuff and just actually moving. So we pushed pause. But this past week we dusted off the old math books and pulled them out and realized we only have like 15 lessons-ish per kid to finish our math books. Now here's the thing, I'm not a stickler on this and normally I would be like, we'll just pick up next year right where we left off. So when we start school back up, we're just going to start there and once we finish then we'll turn over and go to our next textbooks. But we're getting ready to live in a camper and I can't take 2 sets of school books for each kid. So, you know, Eden finishing preschool, moving into kindergarten, and Ezra finishing 1st grade, moving into 2nd, and Isaiah with 3rd going into 4th, and Gabriel finishing 5th and going into 6th. I can't take all of those grades worth of books with us. I don't physically have the space to take 8 math books. And that's what it would come down to. So we have made it a goal to finish our previous year's textbooks before we leave so that I don't have to take 8 math books. Instead, I can only just take the 4 that we're actually moving into. So yeah, normally I wouldn't be a stickler, and if we were just moving from one house to another, I would be like, okay, we're just gonna pick up there and we'll, you know, finish it in 15 days and then we'll start the next one. No big deal. I just don't have the space to do it. So obviously I'm really wishing that we had been able to squeeze it all in and finish it before we left, but such is life, we didn't, and this is where we are. And let me tell you, it was rough. So I pulled out the books and just let me tell, like, wowza. Like, the kids, like, were complaining about having to have their books out. They were like, I don't know how to do this. I've never learned this before. This is so hard. I don't know what to do. I need your help. So I have 3 boys all over the place, you know, needing my help simultaneously. Guys, math took forever to complete. And I brought something to show you. It did not go well. I don't know if you can see all of these circled problems. This is just an example of Gabriel's, but every boy was like this. They didn't know how to do anything. They told me they didn't know how to do everything as they went, so I heard it over and over and over. It was obvious that they didn't know how to do everything because there were so many problems wrong. So all in all, it just did not go as well as I had planned. So obviously what we are experiencing is this summer slump, this summer setback, where we lost a lot of the information that we had already gone over. So what does this kind of say about how we're going to do things in the future? I am making this video to kind of, one, talk about kind of some of the pros and cons of the two different ideologies, but also kind of share kind of where we're coming from, because we've always done the traditional school schedule in the past. But what I'm about to tell you is that we are actually transitioning into more of a year-round approach. This little experiment with the math paper was kind of eye-opening. My kids genuinely had lost a lot of that information, which is kind of disheartening to think, like, we just went over that 2 months ago and it's already like fallen out of their heads. So that kind of stinks, but you know, that happens. That's why we do constant review. But in light of all that, we have decided, in light of that, I will say, as well as some of the things that are coming up, we are deciding to do a more year-round approach. And let me explain why. So I've shared before that Joel is a travel nurse and we're going to be doing travel nurse assignments. Those assignments can last anywhere from 8 to 13 weeks long. So potentially going to be in a location from 8 to 13 weeks. Joel's going to be working during that time. He's not going to be staying with us, you know, working remotely. He's actually going to have to go to a hospital and work. So we're going to be doing school and treating it like our normal school time while he's at work. We're just going to be doing our school. Instead of a sticks and bricks house, we're going to be doing it in our camper. And then hopefully, you know, he's not going to be working 7 days a week, 12 hours a day kind of thing. He's going to have time off, and we're going to be going around and visiting and kind of exhausting those areas that he's stationed for each of his assignments. So we will be going out and doing things in the evenings, weekends, his days off kind of thing. But the beauty of this is that we can actually not have to turn around from one assignment and have to be at the next assignment immediately following it. We have time in between that we can take and do things where Joel's not going to have to be at work. And so how we plan to utilize this is in the times when he's not on an assignment, we want to travel freely, visit the places that we want to go and see, travel the US, get to see all the stuff that we've created, all these huge long lists of things that we want to see. We're not going to be doing school during those times. So if that is in October, we're not going to be doing school in October. If that is a December, we're not going to be doing school in December. Whatever month those line up to be, that Joel's not working at an assignment, those are going to be our breaks. So we're going to be utilizing more of a year-round approach for school, because we're going to be taking breaks hit or miss throughout the year, not your standard, you know, June to August break. So I just kind of want to hit some of the pros and cons, the things that have kind of come to me as we've been, you know, kind of deliberating what we were going to do and how we were going to handle this shift in our schedule. And so first, to start off, I want to point out that neither one of them theoretically are giving you any more school or any more knowledge. It's more or less that it's just, you know, scheduled differently. So they still have to adhere to like the 180 days out of the year. It's just whether or not you take your break smack dab in the middle of the year, or if they're broken up into smaller segments all throughout the year. So let's kind of talk about year-round school for a second. And one of the things that we had kind of thought of that kind of occurred to us is kind of like, you could look at it on both sides of the coin, and one that schooling year-round could kind of be disruptive in a way that, you know, if you're taking a break every 6 to 9 weeks, you know, when I kind of looked at how people had done it, some people will take a 6-week, you know, quarter, and then they would take 1 to 2 weeks off. And some will take 9 weeks and then take maybe like a 3-week break off. And ours is going to be more around like between 8 and 13 weeks, and then we'll have a break to align with Joel's schedule. But what some people were saying was that that can kind of be disruptive. It's hard to get into a routine and a rhythm if only after 6 weeks you're already taking a break. So that's one con to kind of assess. You might have to figure out what works best for your family. Maybe you're going to have to do longer stints of school before you take a break. Because I could see it. If you take a break too early, you are going to miss an opportunity to fall into a rhythm. On the other side of the coin is that it is going to prevent you from having burnout too soon. So just about the time when their eyes start to glaze over and they're like so burnt out and they don't want to do school, it's going to be time for a break. And so that could be a much needed break for your family. So maybe you did get into a routine, but it's too much of a routine and you need a break. You need to step away for a bit. So that's kind of a pro that, before it drags on too far, you can pull in a break and recharge and come back refreshed after you take a little break with your family. And with this kind of comes along with the line of, you're not feeling rushed to fit so much stuff into a certain amount of time. So if you don't finish, just go a little bit longer, then take your break. You can kind of assess, you don't have to finish something before Thanksgiving break, and you don't have to finish something before spring break. You can kind of dictate when you need to take your break so that maybe you're not trying to squeeze in some sort of unit study before a certain date. You can just kind of move, you're more fluid to decide when you need to take your break. Going along with this schooling year-round is a lot of people will say that it will prevent this summer slump and the summer setback because you're not really getting an opportunity to let all that knowledge fall out of your head. So if you're not taking a break, then you're not really losing any of that thing. And I think some of the studies will say that they can lose up to 30% of the knowledge that they've gained during that school year during the following summer before they head back to school. They might lose up to 30% of the stuff that they learned the previous year. So if you're schooling year round, you're taking shorter breaks, getting back into the books before you have an opportunity to let that stuff fall out. But on the flip side, here's another con, is that if you do happen to have a lot of friends and your kids have a lot of friends who are going to a public school, you might have but why do I have to do school? Because so-and-so doesn't have to do school. I'm the only kid that has to do school. It's summer break. We should be at the pool or the beach or this or that. And you might hear a lot of complaining if you have a lot of people in your life who are taking that traditional summer break. So that's something to weigh as well. Maybe making sure that one of your breaks happens to fall during June or July so that you're able to utilize that time with your other public school friends. Another pro with schooling year round is what we've kind of found, and as I started to think about it, we had kind of been inching toward a school year round approach, because this pro of this is that you can travel or take trips or vacations during the off-peak times. So instead of having to wait until the summer in order to take your vacation, you could take it in February, which is what we always did. But that is a pro of being able to take advantage of some of those busy places when a lot of other people aren't going to be there. I know I love that about homeschooling and being able to travel on off-peak times. Now, I don't necessarily think that I would consider this a con, but it's just something to consider if you're going to be schooling year-round, is that you really need to have an idea of where your kids are, especially your more independent kids who are working maybe on their own or doing more things by themselves, because you really have to have a finger on the pulse to know, are they really about to wrap up some sort of curriculum, and I need to make sure that I have the next one available so that we don't have to, wait in order to start, and then I need to order it, and it might be on back order or whatever the case is. You want to make sure that you have the next thing available, ready and waiting for them if they're about to finish. Other thoughts with schooling year round is that you could actually take less breaks if you wanted and really adjust your schedule, and that you're doing less each day. So maybe you want to be done with school by noon every day and have, you have a kid who's really into something, whether it's restoring a car or playing some sort of instrument or having a job. Maybe they're just going to do school more throughout the year, take less breaks, but each day they're only going to be doing school until a certain hour of the day, or they're only going to do math on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and on other days they're going to do things. other subjects. So you have a little bit of flexibility where you could, okay, do we want more breaks, less breaks? Do we want to do more schoolwork in one day or less schoolwork one day? Do we want to focus on this or that? Like, you have the flexibility to kind of determine how this schooling year-round approach is going to work for you. Okay, I'm going to switch gears here now and talk about the more traditional school schedule. And a lot of times I think what we deal with, at least when we're talking about people who went to a public school that utilized a traditional school approach. So both my husband and I, we went to public school our entire lives, and we utilized the schedule that was an August to May schedule. And a lot of times this can just be really hard to let go of that. And give yourself permission and tell yourself it's okay to change. I don't have to follow this particular schedule when I am homeschooling. So if your kids have a lot of public school friends that are having your standard summer break and they want to maintain those relationships, a traditional schedule is going to afford them that ability. A con to the traditional schedule is that it can cause burnout. There just aren't enough breaks throughout the year. You have your standard holiday breaks, but before you're reaching them, you're already getting burnout. The eyes are glazed over. We even reach February and we get this February slump where we're like, oh my goodness, is the year over yet? I actually have an entire video, guys, February slump. The Februaries, they're a real thing. If you don't believe me, watch the video on the February slump. It totally is real. And so if you're following a traditional school approach, this burnout might be more apt to happen. So another benefit of your traditional school approach is that it's going to afford you more ease to sign your kids up for like those summer camps and those summer experiences that they might be inclined to want to sign up for. But back to a con for your traditional schedule is that you are going to have to kind of build in a lot of review. We talk about that summer slump and like losing all of that information. So if your kid happens to lose something over the summer, then you're going to have to make sure that you are including a lot of review when you start your upcoming year to kind of allot for what they lost and plan to kind of build them back up to get them back up to where the level that they need to be for their next curriculum. All right, guys, that's my discussion when we're talking about the options for year-round schooling and your traditional school schedule. So I'm curious, like, what do you guys do? Do you follow a more traditional school schedule, or are you following more of a year-round approach and taking breaks all throughout the year? Let me know in the comments below. I'm always curious to see what everyone else is doing. So if you have any questions, guys, put them down in the comments below and I'd be happy to answer them. And until next time, have a blessed day.